Hey everybody, this is Derek Martin from CodeOpinion.com, and this is Roundup 32. All right, so first up this week is the high performance I/O with system.io.pipelines. I actually forgot to include this in the last week's roundup, but here it is. So this is on Channel 9 as well as the Microsoft Developer channel on YouTube. So if you're unfamiliar with pipelines, it's a pretty good kind of intro primer that can get you familiar with what it is and why it was built by the .NET Core team. So recommend checking this out if you're into kind of low level stuff like I/O. All right, so next up is libraries versus frameworks. And this is on the Six Figure Developer podcast, which I actually never listened to before. I was aware of it. I hadn't really listened to any episodes. This was the first one. So, I mean, Dennis talks a lot of other kind of topics in this podcast beyond libraries and frameworks, which is, I thought it was a really good episode. So I plan on listening to some more, looking at the back catalog here of different guests that they've had on. But again, I think just to highlight the podcast in this particular episode, and I follow Dennis on Twitter. He is the author of Fluent Assertion, so you might or might not know that he does that if you use that project. So take a listen. All right, so next up is Performance Profiling Rider 2018.3. Essentially what this is it appears, for the most part, that .trace was integrated into Rider. So the caveat here being this is only supported on Windows under full framework and .NET Core. So if you're using Linux as well as Mac OS, apparently that's coming shortly, hopefully. But either way, this is really cool. That's included into Rider. I absolutely love Rider. If you haven't checked it out, I highly recommend you do. It's basically a full-blown IDE for .NET that you can run on Windows, Linux, or Mac OS. Keeping with the Rider theme, so this is Matthias, who I seen on Twitter made a post about how, 7 years ago he asked to have a tool to show cyclomatic complexity, and he implemented this in Rider. So this is a plugin that you can actually get. Again, the links are in the description if you're using Rider. This is definitely helpful, and I had already installed it. All right, wrapping up, we have another video. This is What We Got Wrong, Lessons from the Birth of Microservices at Google. So this talk was actually just posted this week, although it goes back from at QCon in November. But I just thought this talk was really interesting because it refers to a lot of the concepts in tech that we are using kind of today in full-fledged, but they were developed many, many years ago in Google and for various reasons that aren't really applicable to most of us today, but how they spurred out of Google. I just thought this was a really insightful video, and I recommend checking it out. All right, that's the roundup for this week. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. The link to the roundup is in the description. Thanks again.